All right, so I am doing the rose on her shirt, and I am doing that through layer styles. And to kind of soften the edge, I can use inner glow and outer glow together to soften both sides of the edge of that shape. And if you don't like how it's looking, because it's a glow, it's on screen mode to always brighten it up, you can always just make it a normal transition, or you can try lighten, which is a little bit more subtle. You can try overlay, which will blend the two together like a double exposure. So you just have lots and lots of variety there. And then the outer glow, if I don't want it to brighten up around, I might change it to just a normal and then pick a color that's more appropriate. Like so, and then make my inner glow match a little bit better by being lighter but also being normal. All right, so softening. I could do that. The great thing about layer effects is I can do that at any time, and I can turn it on and off. So I can do it to this shape too. If I don't want that line so harsh, I can go back to effects and turn on an inner glow there and adjust it with its size and its choke, which is kind of how gradated it is. And its actual color. It's a complete mystery why it keeps going to blue there. It's seeing right through that shape, but I'm just going to see it as a challenge I can work through. And then maybe change to normal mode. So in finding these details, it's just a matter of not wasting too much time on them and going, keeping mindful of the effect you want. All right, so what do I still need? I like the splash of red here. I'm going to put it underneath her top. And it's an interesting shape. It's hard to see, but it's like a curved triangle. So this I would actually probably use two shapes for. I'll use an ellipse. I'll rotate it. I'll warp it, make it more or wider at the base. Like so. Whoops. And then I might add to that a triangular polygon shape to point it out. Because warp is a great tool, but you can't use it to create a point on an otherwise organic shape. It just doesn't work that way. So that's why the polygon tool is helpful when you have to do these compound shapes. Part round, part hard-edged. Then you just fit them together. I'm going to use a polygon tool again for the other ear. Actually, no, I changed my mind. I'm going to use an oval for that. You would think there would be very clear ways to use basic shapes, but in reality, they're very subjective. Some cartoonists and illustrators only ever use organic basic shapes. Ovals, wedges, circles. They'll never use squares, rectangles. They think it kind of weakens their overall design. That's where the kind of bean shape from Disney comes from. You won't see any rectangles or squares in their designs. And it's just the type of visual vocabulary you're trying to build. Now if I feel that's too strong, I can change that color easily enough to one of these more subtle colors. And then I realize it might be nice to transition the head a little bit. And warp it around. So even though we're just tracing an existing composition and finding its basic shapes, we get to decide what's most important about that composition. What needs to be communicated. Then I said I would do something for this. And that something might be using a different kind of tool, like a line tool. Now the line tools in vectors, they're not as fun to work with. But you can build outlines with them. And those outlines have a direction, but they don't really have any mass. So that's how you can do really delicate directional work. But I don't want it maybe quite so hard edged, so I might do kind of a rounded rectangle. Angled like so. Move down where I need it. Check its placement. Transform it. Warp it. So however you can get to your desired outcome. And I'm almost done here. Now I just need to make another one that's a slightly different color. Transform it. Rotate it. Move it in. Again, try not to get too bogged down in little details. And try to figure out what that color should be. And now I'm going to do the first illusion of an open shape to get this little hilt on this sword. I'm going to do an oval that is slightly askew, so I'm going to transform it and warp it a little bit. It's a little bit longer on one side than the other, like so. I'm going to move that behind everything else. And a shortcut, if you don't want to just drag it down, a shortcut is just doing Command left bracket to move layers down and Command right bracket to move them up above. So that can be helpful. And now I'm going to try to warp and get it to come under what I already have. That looks good. Maybe a little bit lower here as well. Position it in. If I need help with that, I can use my multiply layer. And then here's the new thing to make it look like it's an open shape, so it's line work instead of a solid filled shape. I'm going to duplicate that shape layer and then transform it smaller, holding down Shift and Option, so it makes just a smaller version of it inside, and then change that color to the background color. So it looks like I'm punching a hole through it. So there's a lot of kind of problem solving that we'll use in design, figuring stuff out. All right. So that looks pretty good. If I'm being really picky, I might want some of the pink and the white at her midriff, and that'll be the last thing I do. So I'm just going to make a duplicate of an existing shape. That is not the easiest shape to use, so never mind, it will not do that. I don't need something that complicated. I can just use a rectangle, in fact, draw that in, and then warp it to suit my needs. Now, when it comes to the details in Illustrator, this is where you can spend a lot of time perfecting. And that's why this is just an exercise. We're not doing a vector portfolio assignment yet. This is just introducing you to those. So now it's all like the nipping and tucking that's required to get all these pieces of paper to fit correctly together, if you think of them as cutouts. And I don't want you to get too obsessed with it unless you like that kind of thing. But the more practice you get, the better you'll be. Okay, so I've got that, and now I just want the little whites of the gun handles. And I'll build that with small rounded ellipses or rounded rectangles that are brighter in color. Like so, almost white, and then warp those to make them a little bit curvy and hooked over. So there's one, but I need to make sure it's positioned in the right place. Yeah, it looks good enough. And then I'm going to duplicate that and just alter it a little bit to fit it where it needs to go on the other side. So now I can squint at my screen, and I'm going to zoom out so that my image is basically the same size as my little foreground image there. And I'll see, is the composition basically doing the same things? And apart from the black lines on the tiger, which kind of break up the eye movement nicely, yes, this is moving in a very similar way. So I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe I neglected this little black choker. I think that's fairly important. So I'll just add that. But I'll keep it very simple. And I get that to go down. If I want to curve it, I can warp that as well. And just pull it down at the edges. Because it's so narrow, I'll have to zoom in. pull it down there, I pull it down here, I pull it down here.